Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of JournaTime. Moving ahead with time, we are becoming so familiar with digital world, and slowly this virtual world just part of life. And when we adopt something, it always come up with its own pros and cons. There's a term known as radicalization, which is dissolving in our life every day. You might be aware about the impact of global jihad. It is quite visible in West and South India. In southern part of country, where South Indian Muslims living in Gulf countries were especially targeted by IS or AQIS. Many fallen prey to radicalization as people from hard-time Islamic lyrics following Salafi and Wahhabi ideology create a planned radicalization through social media. They were spreading misinformation in remittances event. They used anti-Muslim incident to fuel their propaganda. But this is not just a particular incident where radicalization happening. It is whole another world, ruining the entire generation. And more precisely, online radicalization, which is more towards cyber terrorism. So how one should think about the cases regarding radicalization? It is not another crime incident. It is something much bigger, something more serious. Well, in today's JournaCast episode, we are going to discuss about radicalization and various incidents related to this particular term radicalization with some senior student Kayan Khatun, Anurag Banerjee, and Chandrima Das from Advanced University. Well, moving ahead in this discussion, first I would like to head towards Kayan Khatun. Kayan, as we are discussing about the radicalization, so can you tell us something about online radicalization?
See, Shadman, the web has opened avenues of communication for connected communities and individuals around the world. While it has brought positive changes by bringing people together and encouraging conversations around important issues, it has also exposed us to new dangers as well. The web is home to rapidly developing technologies, which, like all technologies, can be misused by people with malicious or predatory agendas to target the vulnerable. Radicalization involves a group or an individual spreading or inciting extremist ideas online, and the practice of manipulating someone to gain their trust for the purposes of sexual abuse has become known as grooming. And radicalization usually happens when two conditions are present. Firstly, there has to be a person or group that holds a specific point of view and wants to recruit people to support them or take actions on their behalf. And secondly, the individuals being targeted will more often than not share common characteristics or circumstances. There have been many studies around this, but one of the more consistent factor is that the individual has some form of vulnerability, such as mental illness or unmet psychological needs, or for belonging or status, that can be exploited and used by those trying to radicalize them. And there are four types of radicalization. Firstly, right-wing extremism. Then we come to the second one, political religious extremism. The third one, left-wing extremism, and the last one is single issue extremism. And when I'm talking about online radicalization, I am remembering a term keyword here known as the filter bubble. We all know it is a situation in which an internet user encounters only information and opinions that confirm and reinforce their own beliefs. And it is very obvious it is caused by the algorithm which is said by the social media. So you can say how online radicalization in terms of the filter bubble changes the mind of youth. Thank you, Shadman.
Well, very well spoken. Another thing I would like to include here that when you are talking about the right wings and when you are including, when you are try to join this particular word with some radicalization, it is really something which make more and more sense because that is kind of ideology right wings people have. They are more authoritative. They try to create a kind of dictatorship for their own sake, and you can say that yeah, this is how they create radicalization. That is how they push youth towards this particular thing. Another thing you speak about, Khan, that filter bubble thing. which is really really true, that somehow we are saying that whole social media is changed right now. Whole social media is working like another pattern right now, which fundamentally alters the way we encounters ideas and information. Very well said, Kaya, whatever you speak regarding the online radicalization. So here we are discussing the radicalization, more precisely online radicalization. I would like to know some instances as well, like what are the various instances where this particular incident of online radicalization happened in the world. So Anurag, can you tell us about this particular thing?
Well, before moving on to the instances, Shadman, I would like to brief what radicalization basically is. Well, radicalization is a gradual process of developing extremist beliefs, emotions, and behaviors at individual or group mass public levels. Besides various groups, it enjoys patronization covertly and overtly from states to elicit change in behavior, beliefs, ideology, and willingness from the target group. Besides this, despite recording a declination in terror casualties, the 2019 edition of the Global Terrorism Index claims an increase in the number of terrorism affected countries. We know that violence against social media extremism and radicalization of young people today is one of the major problems worldwide and is a threat to the fundamental rights of citizens around. Violent extremism, in its mandate to promote unity and collaboration through means of contact, discussions, group meetings, is an insult to the United Nations doctrines expressed in universal human rights. Well, Shadman, these were the instances for worldwide around.
Well, Anurag, when you are speaking about all this thing, I am recalling some another incident here. There are some incident where this particular instances we are including. Um, if you can remember one line said by Punjab Foundation, or a chairman of Punjab Foundation, Sukhi Chahal, basically, he said that pro Khalistani people running a huge nexus and targeting Sikh youth who are coming from Punjab to US. Basically, they are uneducated and unemployed, fall into their trap as they have run a massive propaganda. They basically radicalize this youth by luring them of providing help for political asylum. So you can imagine that how this thing is basically going on right now in the whole world. This particular radicalization, I can say. Well, Anurag, when we are talking about,
Absolutely.
well, can you speak something about or tell us about something India where this particular incident happening, where this
Yeah,
online radicalization is
absolutely.
happening right
Our
now?
country, yeah, absolutely. In our country, radicalization activities have also increased, such as in the southern states of India. We have seen a number of Indian Muslims in Gulf countries from Kerala and Tamil Nadu. There are also instances in the north, such as in Jammu and Kashmir, while radicalization in Jammu and Kashmir is directly linked to the Pakistan sponsored proxy war. The growth of radicalization in the west and east has also been there. Then we can see an impact of radicalization, where the global jihad on radicalization is quite violent and is visible in the West and South India, respectively. Radicalization spread more in Jammu and Kashmir owing to Pakistan sponsored logistical and financial support, while despite hosting the third target Muslim population, Islamist sympathizers West and South India is very small as compared to the North, because they can have easy access to the North to the whole of India around. And economic standards and equal opportunities in Muslims in the Indian constitution is also a major factor for the radicalization in India.
Well, exactly, Anurag. This is like it, and you know what? Basically, the north part of India and the south part of India are the youth from there are basically radicalized by this kind of people or by this kind of society. Well, moving ahead in this conversation, well, Anurag, very well point you mentioned here. Like it's very good. This is the exact thing which people need to know, that yeah, this has happened already happened in our country, so people should be aware so that they can take some massive step regarding this. Well, moving ahead in
Yeah.
this conversation, I would like to head towards Chandrima Das. Chandrima, we are discussing about online radicalization and this its various instances. So Can you tell us that how or what role can internet, like internet is another community, so what role can internet community play in countering the online radicalization?
Shadman, first of all, it is impossible to quantify the number of online radicalization cases. It is more difficult for police forces to become aware of possible incidents in which violence has been radicalized online. Law enforcement officers should note that it doesn't inherently require illegal activity to become radicalized online and publish, hold, or promote extremist views. The First Amendment Act has guaranteed every individual the right, freedom of expression, religion, and media. As long as these people do not take part in conspiring to commit acts of violence or partake in other crimes, people and organizations that hold the most extreme views must be covered. They cannot be prosecuted in favor of violent actions. Law enforcement agencies may engage their citizens online through the creation of their own social media accounts. Agencies may run virtual raids where the agency can choose to post all the call it receives, like the calls of any kind of or the activities of specific officer or unit for a particular department. Officers involved in this case who are fighting violence should also post on the activities and gatherings of the group that they attend and the people with whom they connect, and invite followers to visit them in these public events. The use of collaborations between the law agencies and the community to resolve the issues surrounding public safety should be supported. Like the way law enforcement agencies have already connected with communities to resolve specific concerns regarding public safety, such as online sexual harassment, by informing young people and parents about how suspicious and persons' actions can be identified and documented. Law enforcement may raise awareness of online terrorist recruitment risks through its current relationships or new collaborations with potentially impacted communities. Such alerts can be integrated into an agency's overall attempt to inform populations on all internet security risks. Thank you.
Yeah, very well said, Chandraman. That, and this is how internet changing the world right now. This is how the world is changing accordingly. Well, moving ahead in this conversation or in this discussion, once again, I would like to head towards Kayan Khatun. Kayan, as we are discussing about, the thing radicalization. So, how do terrorists use internet as medium to recur it and radicalize?
Well, Shadman, although the benefits to modern society of internet are numerous, it must also be recognized that the same technology which facilitates such communication can also be exploited by terrorists. The internet can be used for the glorification of terrorist acts, incitement to commit acts of terrorism, radicalization, and recruitments of terrorists. The dissemination of illegal content, facilitating communication between terrorist actors, and the training as well. Terrorism and social media refer to the use of social media platforms to radicalize and recruit violent and non-violent extremists. According to some researchers, the convenience, affordability, and a broad reach of social media platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, terrorists use these groups, and individuals have increasingly used social media to further their goals, recruit members, and spread their messages. Attempts have been made by various governments and agencies to thwart the use of social media by terrorist organizations, and terror groups take to social media because it's cheap, accessible, and facilitates quick access to a lot of people. Social media allow them to engage with their in networks. In the past, it wasn't so easy to for this group to engage with the people they wanted to, whereas social media allows terrorists to release their messages right to their intended audience and interact with them in real time. Spend some time with time to some following the account, and you will realize that you are dealing with some real human being with real ideas, albeit boastful, hypocritical, and violent ideas. Al Qaeda has been noted as being one of the terror groups that uses social media the most extensively. While almost all terrorist groups have websites, Al Qaeda is the first to fully exploit the internet. This reflects Al Qaeda's unique characteristics. Despite the risks of making statements such as enabling governments to locate terror leaders communicate regularly with video and audio messages, which are posted on the website and disseminated on the internet. ISIS uses social media to their advantage when releasing threatening videos of beheading, ISIS uses this tactic to scare normal people on social media. Similarly, Western domestic terrorists also use social media and technology to spread their ideas. Thank you, Shadman.
Well,
Sorry,
Kayan,
Shadman, sorry, Shadman, I
yeah,
would
yeah,
like to
sure,
interrupt
sure.
here. First of all, very well said, Kayan. I would like to include here the incident that happened in Kerala. Like the state police sought a ban on the Malayalam translation of a 14th century book, of the Book of Jihad, which has been used in the state extensively by the other Islamic state. The Zakir Naik run Peace Foundation is accused of radicalizing school children through radical content. The same problem has been found in Kashmir as well, where the Pakistan occupied Kashmir is using internet to radicalize the minds of youth, where here in India side Kashmir, youths are being brainwashed so deeply that they are even ready to sacrifice their own life going against their country.
Exactly, Chandrima. This is the thing which we need to understand that when you are speaking about this now, I recalled a particular incident back in the 2019, if you can remember, when Pulwama attack happened. A 22-year-old youth, you can imagine, just 22-year-old youth. What will be the life of him? Like how he's supposed to be? But he is a particularly a suicide bomber, and he come up with a line. प्यार में नहीं जिहाद में पढ़ो for
Yeah, I
all his
remember.
community. Yeah, so just imagine how deeply his brain is washed and how like he thinks regarding to his own particular ideology, whatever put put it to him. And this is how you can say that, if you can remember, the magic bullet theory works, that in you common people, to the common people, this is how this thing works. But this is the society, and this is how we are working, and this is really necessary to understand for youth, that what to consume or what not to consume, especially when they are on social media. Exactly, I can say. Well, very well said, Chandrima and Kayan, you too. Moving ahead in this conversation, once again, I would like to head towards Chandrima. Chandrima, can you tell us that when we are discussing about this whole incident regarding the radicalization and moreover online radicalization, what are the measures that government has taken or must take to encounter the radicalization? What do you think about this?
See, Shalman, India's Ministry of Home Affairs has established a counter-terrorism and counter-radicalization division to help states, security agencies, and communities to prevent youth straying towards extremism. Various states, including Kerala, Maharashtra, and Telangana, have set up their own de-radicalization programs. In Maharashtra, family and community plays an important role in this matter, and in Kerala, clerics cleanse the minds of the poisoned minds of youth with a new narrative. The holistic program for community outreach, including healthcare, clergies, and financial stability, is being employed by the Indian Armed Forces. An operation in Kerala named Kerala State Police Operation Pigeon succeeded in thwarting radicalized of 350 youths to the propaganda of organizations such as Islamic State, Indian Mujahideen, and Lashkar-e-Taiba via social media monitoring. In Telangana, outreach programs have been developed by local officers like Rema Rajeshwari to fight the menace of fake news in around 400 villages of the state. In Kashmir, the government resorts to internet curfews to control the e-jihad, while state-owned BSNL network used by the administration and security forces remains operational 3G and 4G networks, and social media apps remain suspended during internet curfews. India certainly needs a strong national counter-radicalization policy which would factor in a range of factors than jobs, poverty, or education, because radicalization, in fact, has affected even well-educated and rich, prosperous families. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chandrima. Whatever you included here, it's really necessary to understand about this. And right now, whatever the situation and whatever the circumstances we are seeing around the world, government really need to think about this. Really need to take some step, especially in the social media, so that it people can understand that what they have to consume or what they don't have to. And being a particular and being a citizen, people also need to understand that not everything on the social media is good to consume. It's not consumable at all. Well, welcome back, Anurag, in this conversation. Now I would like to head towards you once again. Anurag, when we are discussing about the radicalization, so can you say that whatever happening regarding to the radicalization, can we look at through the prism of crime, or it is an outcome of prolonged communalization of society? What do you think about this, Anurag?
Yeah, absolutely. By all means, I feel it's a crime and it should be surveyed as such. They targeted a specific community and degraded them. Though others might have differing opinions, I am of the belief that it's more of a racist and megalomaniac way and should be duly become offensive. And here I have a few host of different sources which also proves that it is a prism of a crime. The FCV, fragility, conflict, and violence are among the most pressing challenges to reducing poverty and achieving the Sustainable Development Goals (SDGs). There is an increased urgency. There is an increased urgency in the rise of the violent conflicts, recorded numbers of forcibly displaced people, and a growing share of poor living in FCV impacted countries. By 2030, it is estimated that up to two-thirds of the world's extreme poor will live in fragile and conflict affected settings. The World Bank Group released its first strategy for fragility, conflict, and violence 2020-2025 and has mobilized unprecedented financing for the FCV, particularly to strengthen the International Development Association's IDAs. One of the financing tools is the Risk Mitigation Regime, RMR, which is the instrument under IDA 18. Along with Kenya, Nepal, Niger, Kazakhstan is among 4 countries which have received funding of almost 100 million US dollars from RMR to risks of FCV, in addition to its regular allocation from the IDA 18. The above mentioned strategies of the FCV underlines the importance of preventing extremism. As we see, the rich becomes richer, the poor becomes poorer. So by 2030, these strategies can be a big help, and not only a help, but this affects the government as it provides tensions in society, weakens government infrastructures, diverts resources from the service delivery, as governments are forced to invest more in security and protect the people. So,
Anurag, when you including the data, when you are including the data regarding to the inequality right now, like you say that rich are becoming richest and poor are becoming poorer, you are so true, man. You are so true that this is happening right now. This is, you can see India is somehow cross the I can't recall that particular number, but India is on the top of top in the being an unequal country where the rich are so richer and poorer are so below the poverty line, so below to
yeah,
the poverty line. So,
absolutely.
and this is the current situation, you can say. Well, as I mentioned, that the current situation regarding to the radicalization is not so good. So we really need to think about this particular about this particular term and take the entire scenario in consideration in order not to get radicalized. And those who are doing it must remember that provoker never gets punished. It's always provoked who gets caught. If you want to ensure a peaceful society, ensure that you don't get provoked. And it's a high time we put in our mind that indulging in such kind of act can paralyze our life forever. It is the common whose life get ruined. And before this ending this session, I would like to say a quote said by Martin Luther King Jr. that true peace is not merely the absence of tension; it is the presence of justice. Thank you very much.